Hey everybody, John Henry Soto here. Welcome to JHS Interviews. And today I am super excited because I'm talking about something that I'm very passionate about. And I have some amazing guests today that are going to enlighten us on what exactly this is. And if you can see, it's right there. I'm not good with this whole thing. Right there, homeschooling. So we're talking about homeschooling. So my wife and I, we homeschooled our daughter for the first a long time. I think she went to preschool, then we homeschooled, and we put her in school just last November, and then this whole thing happened. So now we're kind of homeschooling again, but not really, because it's not. We don't consider what we're doing now with the school system homeschooling, and that's one of the main reasons why we're here today. So I'm really excited to get more information on it and to get really a different perspective from everyone, and to also impart some knowledge to people out there that might be considering it, because in my opinion, I think a lot of people are home right now and they're thinking, maybe we can make this go right. Maybe we can actually do this, and I think that's where it gets exciting for us. So I'm going to start with Karina. Karina,
Hey
how are you?
there.
Hey.
Good. I'm
So
good. I'm happy to be here with you guys.
thank you so much. Tell me a little bit about, why you started homeschooling, a little bit just about your kids and their ages, and some of the you can talk a little bit about the challenges if you want, and then we'll kind of just go and everybody can jump in at right afterwards.
Sure. So I have three children. Okay. They're 10, 8, and 4 years old. We've been homeschooling for 4 years now. So my first is the only one that actually went to, he was enrolled in public school, so he went for preschool, and then he did, his last year was kindergarten. So kindergarten, was the first year that he actually went full time. So when that happened is when I started realizing, first he was gone for too long. By the time he came home, we had lunch, homework, then it was dinner time. I felt like I was just spending with him maybe like an hour and a half, and that was it.
Yeah.
So that was first thing that I started feeling, hey, maybe, there's another way. So then my other two kids have never been enrolled in the public school. So what I would share a little bit is one of the reasons, or some of the reasons why we decided homeschooling. One is the ability that you have to go at your own kid's pace, okay? I have, like I said, 3 kids, and each one is so different. So my son, he happens to learn really quick. Okay? So I felt like the way that he was learning at school was just not fast enough for him. And later on, I learned that my daughter was the opposite. She needs a little bit more time, a little bit more repetition. They're just different. We're all different. So just the fact that at school sometimes it feels like size fits all, it just didn't really click with us. So that was one of the reasons, the fact that I could just go faster with my son and go slower with my daughter and be okay with that. Yes, another one was also the flexibility that it gives you, because since you are in charge of your kids' education, like you can decide what your kids are being taught, and what are certain things that are the most important to you that you can pursue with them. And also, what was I going to say? The flexibility of like, know that some days we want to do school, and some other days we take school outside. We can go for a walk, and we're still doing school because we're still learning about so many things and be able to follow their interests. So it's just many reasons, but that's what I can think of right now.
Sure. No, that's great. Thank you so much. Thank you. So who's next? I think
I'll go next.
Lorena, yes. Hi, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. So Lorena Colon, I have 3 children, a 10-year-old, a 6-year-old, almost 7, and a 5.5-month-old. So she's a while away before we get to homeschooling her. But similar to Karina, I've been homeschooling for 3 years now. And part of my oldest daughter is the one that actually went all the way to 1st grade. And so we brought her home in the 2nd grade, and my son was in like nursery. But interestingly enough, he was one of the reasons that we started looking into homeschooling, because he just happens to be a very vivacious young boy. And he has a lot of trouble sitting still, and I just didn't want him getting labeled in the school or anything like that. I just knew that we were having a little bit of difficulty at home keeping him like still, that I was certain that he was going to have those problems in school, and I didn't want that label on him. So we just decided to bring them both home. I also live in Jersey City, and just the area of Jersey City that we live in is not necessarily the best as far as school is concerned. So we didn't really want to enroll them in the public schools. So we had them I had my daughter in a private school at the time. But so we brought them home. Also because my husband was homeschooled. It was always something that was in the back of my mind.
Interesting.
As something that we could fall back on if necessary. But his mother homeschooled all four of them. There's four of three sister-in-laws and my husband, and they were all homeschooled through high school. So that was something that we just always had, like I said, in our back pocket as an option. And we finally we went for it. And again, similar to Karina, one of the biggest things that was really awesome about it was the flexibility. Flexibility is huge, specifically for us. It was a blessing in disguise in that my daughter was starting to have some minor health issues. There wasn't anything major, but enough that it required a lot of doctor's appointments. And so being home actually allowed for us to be able to schedule all those appointments and not be rushing or stuck in traffic or anything like that. So that was something that was really helpful, having them at homeschool. And honestly, we even just took their work with them in the car. If she had to read something, I would just say, read it in the car, and we'd be driving to whatever appointment we'd be going to, and she'd be reading. But it's like she said, it's allowed for a lot of, I was a little nervous at first because a lot of people aren't used to spending that much time with their children because they work or whatnot.
Sure.
And so I was a little nervous, like, how am I going to do this? But you really grow to know your child really well. Right. And like, I actually really enjoy, I don't know what I would do if I didn't spend as much time with my children now. Right. As I do, it would be strange. Yeah. But you do it. You get into a routine and it just works.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. That it's funny because you mentioned flexibility, and one of the things that the first thing you said was like how not every child learns the same. And we have this system put in place where you're supposed to know this thing, and that one kid that maybe just needs a little extra something is not getting it, and then that kid gets labeled or put into like a special ed class that then makes them feel inferior in some way, and it just brings down morale. So the school system that they have, I know that they're trying. It's a really hard task to try to educate millions of kids all across the country. And I won't go into some of my own other personal opinions on it, but basically the flexibility of it is also like you just said, if she doesn't want, do it here and you got to go out somewhere. I've done that when I was homeschooling. I do videos and stuff, and if I had a job or something, I would just take her with me, and she would help me set up equipment, and I would teach her how to do lighting, and I would teach her all this stuff. And she was sort of getting that type of education there, and then we would do her regular work, so all amazing valid points. Almi, how are you? So congratulations. I know you recently just had a baby, so you have longer homeschooling to go than anyone else.
Yes. Yeah, so my name is Almi, and I'm also a mom of 5. I have a 11-year-old, a 8 years old. I'm sorry, it's too many. I have a 6 years old, I have a 3-year-old, and I have a newborn that just turned 2. Well, no, he's gonna be 3 soon. So about 3 months.
Wow.
And yeah, it's 5 kids, a little crazy, but I love it.
Yeah.
And for us, the reason why we decided for homeschool, I'm actually the opposite of Lorena and Karina. I did believe in the system. So I was pro subjects and curriculums, and you have to start at one time and finish at another time. Kids need structure and all of that. And my oldest, Noelani, she deschooled into third grade. And for first grade and second grade and third grade, each teacher will call me in and say, you know what, like she needs a little bit more because she's getting bored. She's learning a little too fast. And she was a good reader always, so she loved to read. So she was getting bored. Like it was a fact.
Yeah.
So it took us about 2 years for us to decide whether we could do this. I come from the medical field. So I had a very high-paced life. I worked 17 hours a day, 20 hours a day. So for me to give up my career and just say, well, I'm going to homeschool, I was a little prideful. I was like, I didn't work too hard to get here to give it up.
Right.
So it took about 2 years for us to make that decision, but I am so glad we did. Karina mentioned in her example about her 2 kids, the same thing with us. So my oldest, she learns pretty fast. But then my second one, she needs her time. She needs a lot of repetition. She needs reassurance. You need to be there and telling her that she's doing a good job, that she knows what she's doing. And I cannot imagine her succeeding in the school system.
Right.
Like I just know she won't. So I'm glad that my husband and I agreed, and we've been homeschooling now for 2 years. We're gonna go on our 3rd year. And for me, more than the flexibility itself, because I still have the medical mentality, like
Right.
you need a schedule. So for me, more than the flexibility itself is the fact that I know how my kids learn because I'm the one that raised them. So I'm able to adapt their way of learning and what they like to learn. And it just makes it more fun for them to do the work. Less stressful. I was getting very stressed with I don't know if any of you experienced this, but to me, the issue with the food, I'm like, they went to school and they, I will cook breakfast before they go. They will never eat lunch at school. I will always put their lunch, and they will come back with half of their lunch and the whole bottle of water. And I'm like, you went to school for 8 hours. You did not drink water.
Oh, wow.
And again, coming from the field I come, I'm
medical,
like,
sure.
I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is not working. So it's been a blessing. We did it for many reasons. The one that we enjoy the most is the fact that they're here, that they're with us, that we get to raise them, that we get to see when they accomplish a little thing like learning how to read, or a big thing like arithmetic or whatever it is. It's just the fact that we get to see it and we see the work that they put into it.
Right. That's great. I think school has failed a lot of those kids that you mentioned that just need a little bit more, like I had mentioned. And I was actually one of those kids. I was not like, I was a daydreamer. They literally thought, luckily my mom was very progressive and she like didn't believe in medication or labeling or any of that stuff. But they would call my mom and say like, he's doesn't listen. He doesn't pay attention. And I was just so bored. I knew everything they were talking about. It was just, I was just bored, and I was lucky because I had a mom, but there are a lot of kids that are not as lucky, so the school system really does need overhaul, to really kind of like get some type of system in place where those kids will actually be taken care of properly, not made to feel like you just don't got it, so you got to go to this class, and I think that's one of the benefits of homeschooling, where who else can actually help a child better than their parents, and be as loving to the to the child, and the child knows they're being loved and they're being educated. You know, there's nobody else better than a parent. Now let me ask you a question, because anybody can answer this, but you know, while we were homeschooling, you know, we get the same kind of questions that I'm sure you guys are all going to cringe when I say the first one. But
SO.
Socialization.
yes, yes, and of course now it's like social distancing, so now they should be all super excited. So now we're all in the same boat.
Yes.
But like,
Yes.
you know, they talk about socialization, like, you know, socializing. And one of the examples that I told someone once, I was like, you know, sit down, don't talk in class, don't talk while standing in line, raise your hand if you want to go there, don't talk back, don't talk to your friend, don't talk to. There's no socialization there. I don't understand where people get the idea that there's this big socialization going on in the schools. There's just a lot of control going on. And granted, when you have that many kids in a room, you know, in a school, there has to be control, because they, you know, you have to kind of have them. It's like herding, you know, like sheep or something. But so that's kind of the mentality that I think that they have on it. You know, it's like they have to kind of just make sure that, and you know, what's your take on that? Is that something that you, because I know about it, and I know that there is no such thing as, there's way more socialization in homeschooling than in any school that you can
Yes.
imagine. I mean, 100 times more. What are your challenges that you run into when you run into people that really don't duplicate that side of it?
John, before any of us answer that, I want to mention something, you know, not to bypass it, because I think it's important. You know, we only see the struggles when kids don't learn a certain way, and we feel that, well, the school is failing because, you know, they're not getting the extra help. But sometimes it's even worse. Sometimes they're bypassing the fact that they're not learning, because everyone needs to pass.
Right.
So now you have your child that spent 8 hours of their day in school,
didn't get it,
200 and whatever days a year, and they didn't get it, yet they're going to the next grade.
right.
So we're graduating people with just a minimum knowledge, you know.
Mhm.
And I think for me that was a big thing. For me, it was like, wait. I know what my kids are capable of, and this is not enough.
Right.
So not only that they level the ones that don't get the extra help, but they can afford to look individually. And I'm not blaming the system. It's just the fact that we're too many, you know. So because they're unable to address individual issues, they're bypassing holes in the students' education. And I think that's even worse than the other thing. So I just wanted to mention that, because to me that was like a big issue.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And I want to add to that also a little bit, that it's not necessarily the, you know, we talk about the public school. We're talking about the public school. There are great private schools. There's a lot of different types of learning systems where people, you know, the school is very involved with the parent, and, you know, you don't have to knock on the door and somebody opens the door and it's like, what do you want? You know, because that's how that actually happened to me when I went to go.
That is, yeah.
You know, they don't mess with you, you know, and it was, you know, so there are a lot of schools out there that actually do take into consideration every single child. So we're not like saying that whole system. We're only, I'm referring, me personally, is the public school system. Go ahead, Karina.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and it's not the teachers either, because there's great teachers out.
Exactly.
I mean, like my wife. Okay.
That's right.
Correct.
Yeah, she teaches at Irvington, so.
Yeah, they work hard.
I can say that.
You know, like they're good teachers, but it's just system, you know.
Right.
There's
It's
a
a
lot I
difficult system to really manage.
Having taught in the New York City school system, there's just a lot of red tape for like for brand new teachers. I taught for 2 years in the New York City school system, and I was burnt out just with all the administrative stuff that you had to
put on the teacher.
Yeah, I mean, like they would pull me out for meetings. I mean, I had 40 minutes to teach like a class of 46 graders who were being passed, you know, as long as they knew a certain amount. And there was nothing I could do about it. and I'd be pulled out of class for a silly like question. And I'm like, you wasted 5 minutes of my time. Like I
Right.
needed to be in there because they don't have that much time with me. I was teaching math. And it would make
Right.
me really angry. It would make me really
Yeah.
angry because I'm like, what? They just, at the time, and this was several years ago in 2012, when I was teaching, like they required so much of teachers,
Yeah.
and never gave you enough like support.
Fine.
Like I never had a class set of books. I never had anything to send home with my kids. It was just a lot. Like it was a lot, and I couldn't imagine. I was like, my goodness, like teachers have to do this every day, all the time,
Right.
with minimal support.
Right.
And you know, some of them do wonders. You know, they do amazing things, but it's
Listen,
hard. It's very hard.
I give the teachers, you know, now that I homeschool my kids, I'm like, I don't know how you dealt with my kids. I'm like, you should have called me and be like, pick up your kid. Sometimes I just want to do things, you don't know. So I can imagine 22 of
Yeah.
those in one class.
Yeah. I mean, I
It's
guess the main difference is the fact that they're your kids, you know, and
right.
the teacher gets paid, and not only that, they have an the administration that's on their ass, getting them to try to like do things and stuff, and it's the stress and the pressure that gets put on them. It's just
Well, and see,
incredible.
that's actually, you know, going back to part of why we homeschooled. Like I know I said these exact words to my husband was when we had my son, and he was just having difficulty sitting down, listening, and you know, he was 4, but still I was like, wow, I knew what it was like to teach in a school, and I knew what it was going to be like for him. And I said, listen, I don't want to put a teacher through that.
Right.
Like I know how much a teacher has to put up with already, and now like if anyone's going to struggle with our son, it's going to be us, not them.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And so he really understood that, and so he, you know, we were like, let's try it out. If it doesn't work, you know, we just send them back to school. But so far so good. We like it.
That's great. That's great. Karina, were you going to say something?
Oh,
Karina.
she went a
did you
little
freeze?
She's freezing
frozen.
up a
There
bit.
she is. I wasn't sure if you were gonna say something, Karina.
Oh no, you guys kind of were frozen for a minute. No, but I was going back to the question that you asked about the socialization.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
yeah, and one thing that I want to kind of clarify is that it is true that homeschooling can become really lonely, okay? But I feel like it's because we know that is that we are more intentional about it. So you know, we are intentional. Always, you know, in the back of our minds that that's an important aspect. So I feel that my kids socialize a lot because
yeah.
you know, they're not stuck in the school for so many hours and they come home with a ton of homework. But you know, it only takes us if we don't have interruptions or any other circumstances at home, we can be done, you know, in good 4 hours in the morning.
Right.
And they were free to go out, you know, and the homeschooling community here in Bayonne is growing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and we found each other, and there is we have a Facebook group called the Bayonne Homeschooling. You know, so we try to play dates. We've done field trips in the past, and you know, we're just intentional about it. So I feel like that's that we really will be worried about it, about them not having that aspect, you know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I remember I went to a bunch of those Liberty Science Center. And
Yes,
stuff.
yes.
You know, I mean, growing up, I didn't really I grew up in the South Bronx, so you know, and it was a little bit different. We didn't really have Liberty Science centers or anything like that. So it was a little bit different. So even for me, you know, being an adult going to these things, I was like so impressed by the kids and how they interacted with one another. There was never a screaming kids, or they were running around and playing like kids do, but it wasn't that weird disruptive growl that you hear in like schools. And again, I'm probably shouldn't go too much into the school thing, but my point on that is that the socialization is really put there by the parents, you know, and by other homeschoolers, you know, so nobody's alone there, you know, and I think that's one of the major things that somebody out there that's considering homeschooling, you have to realize that you're not alone. There's a lot of people out there that are willing to sit with you, go over different curriculums and different systems and ways of actually teaching your kid. Because I think a lot of people, they think, oh, well, I'm not a teacher. There's no way I'm going to be able to. I don't want to take that responsibility of teaching my kid. I don't know that. And that's been beaten into them by lies, basically, because no one can educate your kid better than a parent, because that's the way it was for thousands of years before this 100 years of this system that we had. I mean, this system was 100 years old, give or take. And for thousands of years, people just did, they were an apprentice for somebody, for a business that they were interested in. And that's how they learned. And the parents took care of the reading and the math and all that stuff. So I love this conversation because I think I think, like I said, there's so many people out there that are probably needing to talk to somebody like one of you three, or even me if you want, because it's something that's really exciting right now with what's happening. And I think giving people a new perspective. How are you guys dealing with this whole situation that's going on now? And the blessings really is that you're homeschoolers. So you're home anyway.
So I think, so I'll answer.
No, go ahead.
But so I think on that front, it wasn't, because I know I've heard people term the homeschooling from like having been going to public school to homeschool, they're calling it crisis schooling. And it kind of is, because a lot of them are still having to work from home plus homeschool their kids. So for us on that level, it hasn't changed much because it's what we've already been doing. But to touch back on the socialization piece, like that's where it's been very difficult for us. Because we homeschool, but we're not used to being home all the time. And so that's been so hard for us, because we do have a lot of like play dates. My daughter's in dance team. So she had like dance 3-4 times a week, and now 0, on Zoom. But they just asked her today, how are you liking the Zoom dance? She was like, she doesn't like, they want to meet with each other. So for us, that's probably been the hardest part of this entire coronavirus quarantine was just not being able to go anywhere and visit with our friends, because we're so used to doing that on a weekly basis that's been the toughest.
That's gotta be
in my case it's almost illegal for me to go out because we're so many. Like if people count us, they're like, wait, what's the rule? How many people can be together? I'm like, those are my kids. We live in the same house.
No public gatherings. What are you doing?
Well,
I think you're protesting or something.
Definitely socialization for us is not an issue. So we're very social. We love your family because of that. Your daughter is just a social butterfly. She just
thank you.
opens up, and so we're very social. We try to make it work, So in my house, for instance, I posted a picture on Facebook. So my kids, my neighbor, I live in a corner lot, right? So my neighbor from the other side, their bedroom, my daughter's, is window to window from my neighbor. So if you open the window and you just trying to reach them, they can touch. So
that's
how
gross.
they feel socializing. They sit on the bed, open their windows, and they talk. And you just make it work. You just make it work. If you understand the situation, it's getting a little, too extended. But for homeschoolers, as Karina said, we are just very intentional about understanding that kids need other kids. And not only for me, it's not about only the social aspect, but it's about learning.
Yes.
How do you learn to be a player? How do you learn how to take turns? How do you learn how to actually negotiate what game you're gonna play? Like even that. Like, okay, you want baseball, but I want basketball. So how long are we gonna take to figure this out? And it's more about the learning experience of socializing than the actual socializing. To me, when we get together, it's socializing for the moms.
Yes.
And for the kids, they're learning. And we just make it work. You just make it work. You get a group of good families that are on the same page, that want to do the same things, and you just get together and you laugh about life, and that's what it's about.
And there's lots of groups like that. I know for a brief moment I was part of a Facebook group that's like Homeschool Hikers of New Jersey. So they schedule hikes and like and outdoorsy stuff. So there's a group of people that just love the outdoors. Well, that's a group for you because they go to a bunch of different outdoor things all the time.
I won't be hiking anytime soon, but that's not,
if you're willing,
that's what's there.
Drive. If you're willing to drive, there is so many things you can do. You know, like
that's true.
Classes and just people putting things together. That it really is not that hard.
So let me ask you, because there's a lot of I know that there's a lot of different systems, a lot of different programs, you know, that people can utilize in doing homeschooling, because you're not out there with a pen and a piece of paper and go. There's actual curriculums that you can purchase from a company, or there's a lot of things that you can do out there. Which ones are you you guys are utilizing?
So I can
because the three of us have tried different things.
Right.
So in my case, I have had only one program, that is the one that we started with 4 years ago, and we use, it's called Classical Conversations. It is a classical Christian curriculum and community. So it uses like the classical method of education that kind of uses or takes advantage of the abilities of kids in certain ages to be able to memorize and learn, all the aspects. So what I love about this curriculum is that it's not just they tell me what I'm going to teach, but I also have a community, that is so necessary in your homeschooling. So we meet and we are given the kids experience what it is, to be in a classroom setting. They have another person, another adult teaching them something. They're up with other kids. And we get everything that we're going to learn that week, and then we go home and we work on that. But then we also have, the social aspect that we were just talking about. Right. So that is what we have been doing from the beginning.
Okay.
I know that you guys have tried something else too, right?
Yeah, so I mentioned for us, we were in a private school beforehand. So when I took them out to homeschool, we just went ahead, and the curriculum that the private school used is also a homeschool curriculum. It's a Becca, which is a Christian curriculum. And so I just decided for that first year, I said, so that it wasn't such a big difference for the kids to use that same curriculum. But what it ended up being was that falls under the traditional style of homeschooling, which is where you're basically just recreating a classroom setting in the home. And I just felt like that was too rigid. Part of the reason that we chose to homeschool was so we'd have a lot more flexibility and we'd have time to go out and do things as a family. I mean, we're blessed that my husband's a firefighter, so he has some days off that happen to fall during the week sometimes. And so we wanted to go to the Liberty Science Center, like we could go do that during the week. And it was taking up a lot of time because it was so traditional. Like she had to do her math and her science and her history and like everything, boom, 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 boom. And so the following year I was looking to switch, and I actually met Karina at that point, and she talked about classical conversations. And I really liked that idea because we would meet once a week with a community of other homeschoolers, but then I still had the autonomy to do my own thing at home. Right, like touch upon what we learned that one day a week and learn throughout the week, but I could do it however I wanted. Right. And we actually had just more flexibility. So we switched to the classical conversations method. So
cool.
We like that.
Yeah, for me, we looked at a system pretty close to what a beca looks like. Very structured. You sit on a computer. There's a teacher that teaches you. And you submit all of the paperwork. They grade. So it's almost like you're going to school. You're just doing it from home. And I purchased this whole curriculum. We're doing this, invested on it. And then the 4th month, I'm like, my child is on the computer with headphones all day long because no one can speak when she's taking the class. So she's not only in the computer, but at home, we were literally like, you have to be quiet. Noelani's taking class, da da da. And I'm like, this is not,
wow.
I wanted a homeschool, So
Right.
we switched, I think half a year through it. After I have purchased everything, I'm like, enough. I'm gonna go with a new curriculum, and we we pick and choose. So for example, our math curriculum comes from Saxon, which is a spiral type of way of learning. So whatever you get to learn, you're gonna see it again later on, so that you never forget it. So it's not like, okay, you learn about division and you won't see it again ever. No, they go back and forth, and I like that because it just keeps it keeps fresh in your memory.
Right.
And that's our math. And then for the other aspects of learning, like science and social studies, so I also belong to the classical conversation curriculum, and we use that, and I use that for science and social, and we have something that's called essentials, which is a class for English and writing, and we use that method, which is from IW. Great curriculum for English and grammar. It's just, I love it. So you pick and choose, and you make your own thing according to your child and the child's needs. So not every child does well with every curriculum. So you just have to go and check what's working for your child and stick to that.
Right. So
I think,
go
ahead, sorry.
ahead. No,
No,
ahead.
I just wanted to point out, like, so my mother-in-law homeschooled many, many years ago. And back when she did that, there wasn't as much support, or even just curriculums out there, right? For it. Now it's actually, there's so many people in the US that do homeschool. So there is a lot of information out there for anybody that does want to homeschool. And so there's tons of videos on YouTube, and even one on the different styles of homeschooling. So I think anyone that's just looking to homeschool or thinking about it like that, I wish I could find that one YouTube video, because it goes over like the top 5 main ones, and it really just kind of allows you to speak to what you as a parent would want to do, like which of the methods fits you and your family. And then from there, you can start looking at the curriculums that tailor to that type of.
Yeah, that's like the first, you got to know what works for your family.
Right.
It has to fit, it has to work for your family.
And that is why it's so important I feel for parents to understand that there is nobody else better than you to teach your child.
Right.
Because you have seen them since they were born, and you know them. I mean, like, teachers, as much as they work super hard and as everything they do, they don't really know the child as a whole.
Right.
So educating a kid is more than just teaching them how to read and math and science and history. We are educating a whole person. So I feel like that is something super important that parents just know, like, you can do it. Like, if I
can absolutely do it.
So, so we mentioned, go ahead.
No, I wanted to add to that, because the whole purpose of us wanting to share about homeschooling in this time, that we're living, is because the first thing that people assume is, well, you're home, you're not working, I'm assuming, and that's the reason why you have the time to homeschool. And you, John, know that you can run your business and homeschool. So I'm a business owner.
You have to make a decision. You have to make a decision and say, this isn't going to be a piece of cake, but this is going to be worth it.
Exactly. I mean, I gave up my career, which I loved, but what I needed to do to bring the income and to be able to accomplish homeschooling was, okay, what do I need to do next? I'm not able to stay home without the income, but I know I need to homeschool. So what do? I open my own business. Thanks to God, everything is, has worked amazingly. And I have been able to run my business, to do homeschooling, to work in my business, everything that, even things that I didn't think I could accomplish. So if you really are intentional and you really want to do this, and you still need the income, there are ways. There are ways you can do it. There are ways, and believe me that you will not regret it once you see your child loving to learn. And that's that's where we aim. We want them to love what they're learning, not just learning because they need to pass a test.
Right.
Exactly.
Speaking of tests, I wanted to touch upon that because that's one of the biggest questions I get. How do you know what your kid's learning? Like how do you test them? How do you and interestingly enough, you don't actually have to test your child, because if you are like, what they know. Like half the reason that teachers will, there is testing in the public school is because you've got a teacher with 30 kids and she has to know, did most of my students understand the material or did they not? So you test them. But when it's just your children, you know what they know. So like I can move on or even skip some stuff because I know that my child knows all this already and this is just redundant and I can move on. So that's something
that's a
that
great
I
point.
wanted to point out. I don't really have to test my kids.
You want to test, but if you do want to test, there is options.
It's available. Yes.
Exactly. So you're able to test also, and those tests are certified by the state of New Jersey. If you want to go that route and making sure that your child is learning according to what the system understands he should. But also remember that in the state of New Jersey, because I did homeschooling research not only for New Jersey but also for Florida, because we were in the midst of wanting to change states, and every state is different. It works differently. But in New Jersey, a person only needs to have a GED to be considered a graduate. So as long as you understand that your child can sit and pass a GED, you're teaching them enough according to the state of New Jersey.
Yes.
Right.
So and I want to add to that, because a lot of people get really nervous when they hear about the GED, but again, my husband and all his siblings were homeschooled. All 4 of them received their GED. I have one sister-in-law who's an executive at NBC Universal, another one who's a lawyer, another one who has her own business, and my husband's a firefighter, captain in the fire department. And they all have their GED. Right, because they were homeschooled. They didn't get their high school diploma, but they got their GED. Like that's just the piece of paper that you need to get onto college. And colleges don't care like which one it is.
No, colleges are it's a business. It's a business.
Yes.
And
I definitely wanted to point that out because
that's a whole other conversation about the college.
Something that really can freak a parent out, because they're like, how are they gonna graduate high school? What paperwork do I need? I'm like, their GED.
Right. Well, that's a good I guess barometer to kind of measure if somebody needs to get that information and know, So let me ask you something, because I'm gonna play like I'm a parent and I'm considering this, right?
You're gonna play devil's advocate?
I didn't want to go that dark. I didn't want to I'm gonna be nice. I'm gonna be an angel advocate. So, but let's just say there's a lot of information that you're giving me of different, classical conversations, which sounds amazing. Or the one that Lorena, you mentioned, I can't remember the name of it. Yeah, and all these different systems. So somebody is now watching this, and they're going to be a little bit bombarded with these systems, and thinking, well, I don't have time to pick and choose and put a thing together to know, what should they do first? Is there a specific thing that they should be looking for? Is there someone that they can call, if they call one of you, to kind of just walk them through it? If they're afraid or something, is there an email they could send, a website, just to kind of ease someone who's watching this and gets a little bit nervous that they're not going to be able to do what you all have done?
Yeah. Okay. So different ways to go here. Okay.
Yeah.
Like I had mentioned before, since we started homeschooling, I just happened to find passion for for homeschooling and for sharing this with other moms. So like 4 years ago, we started with the Facebook group that it's called The Young Homeschoolers. So it's not a huge group, you know, because I have tried to keep there people that are actually homeschooling, right? But you can always, you know, reach out through there. You can also, I think like all three of us feel that way. You can reach out to us. My email is Karina Budmeyer, which is Karina, B as in baby, OUD as in David, M as in Mary, ER.com. Okay.
You know what I'll do? I'll also put everything in the description of this video.
Sounds great.
So
Awesome.
they can just go there. Yeah.
I love to talk to people about homeschooling, and either if we share the same what do you say, convictions or not, and different styles of educating, I'm sure that you'll always find something good, you know, something in common that we can talk about and give you some guidance.
Yeah.
And now the other thing is, now if you are interested in a Christian curriculum and be part of a community, like we said, classical conversations, this year we opened a community here in Bayonne. Okay, I might be wrong, but I think this is the only homeschooling community around here. Okay, so for that too, let me show you, so just people can see it right there. So that's what it is. I don't know if you just see it backwards, but that's Classical Conversations. You can visit their website, okay, www.classicalconversations.com. You can find like a virtual catalog there. There's some information, and you can take a look and then just contact one of us. You know, we can share all kinds of information.
I'll put that link also. I'll put the website in the description also.
But also,
so it's basically education, right?
Well, yeah. You know, and something that I love is not just the curriculum and the community. Like I said, it's not just the social aspect of it, but Classical Conversation is it's statewide, or it's even international. You find it in other countries. Okay, and what they really want to do is to come alongside parents to support them and train them and teach them how to do this at home. So it's not just a group that you go to just do school together, but you get training, you know, you get free practicums for the parents. Every time that you go, you get somebody's modeling for you, like what are you going to do at home? And our goal is always for the parent to come with the kid, you know, and walk away feeling like, okay, I got this. I can do this at home.
Oh, that's great. They're walking you through it, so you're not alone. That was my point. So it's basically education, getting educated in it, and asking the right questions and asking the right people, obviously. And Lorena, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, for anyone that's like just completely overwhelmed and thinking like, what can I do? I mean, every state has their own homeschooling rules, right? So luckily here in New Jersey, it's very flexible. You can just tell you don't even have to you just have to unenroll your child from the public school system and tell them you're going to homeschool, but you don't even really, I don't think you even really have to do that, but I would check the New Jersey state website to ensure.
Yes, you have to unenroll.
Just unenroll them. But if your child has never been in the school system at all, like they're barely turning 4 or 5 years old, you never even have to enroll them. You can just keep them home and homeschool them. But there are tons of Facebook groups online. I think there's even one that's like NJ Homeschooling 101. So it like you can start from like the very beginning. Like it'll just tell you what you should do, and they'll walk you through the homeschooling process. And then, like I mentioned before, just kind of like sit down and think, maybe with your spouse, like discuss the type of homeschooling you want. So for, because if there's some people that it has to be traditional and has to be this way. Well, there's tons of curriculums out there that are traditional that'll give you the math, the science, and your kid will be sitting at home in their desk doing their work all day long the way they would at school. They're just doing it at home. Then there's the classical method, which is the one we're all involved in, where there is community, but you're also doing it classically. And that just kind of, think of the one room schoolhouse kind of idea. That's classical. There's the Charlotte Mason method, where you learn through literature. There's even unschooling, people who believe that you just don't, like, they learn through life. Like they don't actually do any schooling. Well, not that they don't do schooling, but they don't do it the traditional way. Right. They're not gonna have their kid doing books and then they learn through just like different things. and those are all, it depends on you. Like, it's all up to you as a parent and what you want for your children. So like there
Right.
is tons of flexibility even in that aspect when it comes to homeschooling.
That's great. So we've covered a lot of a lot of ground on this. I wanted to kind of just get a final thoughts on like what, you know, there's a little controversy in sometimes that comes up in the news, and you hear somebody's trying to, you know, get rid. I just saw something from this Harvard professor. Sorry, but she said that they should outlaw homeschooling because the parent does not know how to properly get the child to. And I'm bringing this up only because I know it's not a pleasant thing, but because here we are, you know, we've all homeschooled. You guys are all in it for the long haul. And I think it's important that people understand that, you know, it may not be a popular thing, but we're not losing this battle, because I think people get scared when they see these things that come up, and oh, homeschooling, you know, this professor trying to saying no homeschooling, whatever. She's one professor in one school, probably hasn't taught in, she was an older lady, she probably hasn't taught in like 100 years. And so her views are different. They're coming from a different time, you know?
Yeah.
But do you have any challenges on that? Like, are you concerned at all with the governor and the system, and saying that, well, you know, homeschooling is not, you know, we're just not allowing homeschooling? And you don't have to answer that if it's too controversial. I'll just shut up.
Nothing for me is controversial. So
Me neither.
I mean, for this teacher, I will say that I know what you're speaking about, John. So to give her credit, she did. She was a professor when schooling was good. So her understanding on what school looks like was when the system was somewhat working.
At the beginning,
But it was classical.
the first 40 years.
When it was mostly classical. So
Right.
maybe she's standing on that point of view, you know, just to give her credit.
All right, if you want to be nice.
Yeah. On the other hand, you know, there's always going to be a worry, because we don't know where we stand, specifically in these times that we see many people are opting out of following regulations because of everything that's going on. You know, vaccines.
Right.
Mandatory so and now you have to go on a list, and they're going to be checking everything out, and all of these things that, you know, that will be coming. Right. So homeschooling is the new hot topic, and that's the reason why we all agree in doing this, because I think that there's a lot of people questioning homeschooling, whether it's they want to do it or whether it's they don't think it works. Right. So obviously, there's always a worry, but I always like to stay with the data. So right. If you look at the facts, in any curriculum, you can go in the classical way, or you can go in the strict way, like BJ Press, which is the one that I purchased first, that then I changed, that they actually grade your student, and it's almost like going to school and whatever. Whichever way you want to go, if you look at the data, all of homeschool graduates that actually followed a curriculum, because if there's parents that say, I'm going to homeschool, but they don't do the work. So, I mean, right. We have to be honest, you know, we have to be. So right. If there is a family that actually follows a curriculum and that actually is intentional about homeschooling, if you look at the data, those kids are graduating high school, they're going and pursuing careers in college, they're graduating with good grades, and they have a well-rounded education. Because usually those kids actually get to explore life more than a kid that stays in school. So they're not only academically being challenged, but they're culturally being challenged. Right. They're able to travel more. They're able to interact with many, many races, because they're doing homeschool in a hike. or they're doing homeschool in a camp, or they're doing homeschool in a 1 month trip back to their country of origin, you know?
Right.
So those kids, when you look at the data, they're
Right.
very well educated. They're accomplishing what they need to accomplish academically, and they're more culturally well-rounded.
Yeah. That's wonderful. And that's why I wanted to bring that up, because I think it's important that people know that you do have a community here that's really banding together and realizing the importance of homeschooling based on the data, like you said. That's really the what you have to always rely on, and
Exactly.
for anything really, you just have to look at the actual facts. And so anyway, I want to thank you for that answer, because that was perfect. Any last thoughts on anything you want to communicate to anyone out there at this point? They've been watching and they're at this point now where they're kind of like, maybe I should talk to them, or maybe I should set up a meeting. Any last thoughts? I'll start with Karina, and then we can go around the circle.
Yeah, one thing that used to get me at the beginning is, are you capable? Not just, we already talked about knowing your child and all that, but many people ask, can I do it? Like, I don't know all subjects. How am I gonna do this? And somebody once told me this, and it stuck with me, is that I don't need to know everything. I can very well learn alongside my children. And as long as I am a week ahead or a day ahead, I'll be fine. If tonight I look at what I'm going to teach my kid tomorrow, and there is something that I don't understand, that I don't know, do a little research, tomorrow I will be prepared to teach my kid.
I love that.
And for me, this has been a great experience in the fact that I feel like I'm redeeming my own education.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that I learned, but I just forgot. And I'm like, oh yeah, Charlemagne.
Oh, I know. Yeah, that happens to me all the time. I mean, like I said, I slept through many years of that. So the only thing I knew was how to play guitar. That was all I actually remembered from like being a kid. But going now with my daughter, I actually do. I'm reading something. I'm like, oh wow, I didn't know that. Like she did this whole thing about like seeds growing and stuff in the. And there was just so much stuff that I had no idea. And I'm like looking at this going, wow, that's amazing. She's like, you don't know this?
And
No.
I actually feel like it's a great thing that our kids get to see that in us, that we don't know everything.
You're right. I do. Yeah.
We don't know.
I use it. I use the experience that I'm learning, so we can both kind of like learn it together. And sometimes she'll be like, "Oh, Daddy, look at this! Did you know that this?" And I was like, "Oh, wow, I didn't know that." And we kind of, we're kind of experiencing that together, and it really creates even a bigger bond, because now education is now connected to parents.
Right. And you know what?
Principle.
Yeah, you know how that works for their self-esteem.
Oh,
the fact that they know more than Daddy.
Yeah.
But not even
not
just
much
that.
for mine, but for hers, it's tremendous.
But I think not even just that, but I think like when you go back and you think about your parents when you were a kid, like they could do no wrong, right? Like you thought they were perfect, and like that first time that they did do something like wrong, it like, but like if you're doing it like school wise and you're learning it together, and you say, "Oops, I didn't know that," and they're like, "Oh." It just kind of helps them to know like it's okay to not always know everything. Right. It's okay, like even adults don't know everything, and that's why they ask for help, so I should ask for help. Like it just kind of like teaches them that too, I think.
Yeah, that's tremendous. Yeah, I agree.
So don't be afraid, you're not gonna mess up your child.
No. And to add to that, what I would say is like there's so many resources now, and there's so many people. And I have yet to meet anyone who homeschools that's not like excited about talking about it or willing to like help out, somebody. Right. So like whenever they're overwhelmed or they're feeling too, like they don't know what to do, like there's always someone they can reach out to, and then google.com, like the best resource as well.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I tell people that all the time. I did that. I was doing something, I was teaching something, and somebody asked me a question, and I was like, something that I'm not going to educate them on. And I said, go to this website, GOO, and they're writing down. And then halfway through they're like, okay,
Are you?
but yeah, you can learn a lot on there. Yeah, absolutely. So we lost Alma.
Yeah. Can I say
I
just
think
one more thing?
absolutely.
Also, is that for you to homeschool, you don't have to have a lot of money. Like there is so
No.
many ways,
So many free
like
things.
Right.
yeah, there's a lot of free resources online. You can, we have another mom that homeschools, and she just uses her library so much. There is a lot of different ways,
Yes.
so that don't let the fear or the financial part stop you, because
That's a really good point.
there's just
That's a really
so
good
many
point.
ways to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'm gonna put all that information in the description below. So if anybody's interested in reaching out to Karina, Lorena, or Almi, I'll put their information. I also put the website for Classical Conversations down there as well, and they can look at that. We lost Almi. I don't know if her phone died or anything, but um, I don't know if you guys want to wait a few minutes. Maybe we can talk about something else and just give her maybe another second to come back just to say
Probably.
goodbye. I'll ask another question then.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Go
I'll just
ahead.
ask another question. So, one of the challenges that I remember growing up was bullying, right?
Mm,
And that's one of the things that I think and it's a big giant anti-bullying campaigns and all these things that are going on. Now that's been going on for forever. Somebody teasing
Mhm.
someone else has been going on since the beginning of time, right? It got a little bit blown out of proportion in the school system, where it became like this thing now where it's like you can't be a bully, and they created this label for it. They love labeling. So they labeled this thing, anti-bullying. And one of the things I love the most is that we don't have that. I never had that worry. You know what I mean? Like it was like when we go to the park and if there's a kid that's just acting, inappropriate, we just walk away. I say, well, just don't play with that kid anymore. You can't do that in school.
Right.
You have to go the next day. You're going to be next to that bully again, and there's that to me. How do you feel about that? Is that something that affects you, or is that something you don't even really think about? Because I mean, you allow people in your group that are basically homeschoolers. So generally you're going to have people that are on the same page, but you do have to go out sometimes and you have to associate and you have to interact with the world. And the world sometimes it's not, sometimes the world can be mean. What do you do to prepare your child for a world that sometimes is not
Mhm.
going to be that
Well,
nice, like
well, I don't.
home?
For me, one of the things that I appreciate very much about homeschooling is that there's like an added bond. I mean, I'm sure everyone bonds with their children, but I always make sure that I talk to my daughter, who's 10, about anything. She has any questions about anything. And up until now, I mean, she's had some pretty interesting or like real tough life questions that she's asked me about. So I expect that she's still able to come talk to me about something. So I always just make sure to not ask her, but I tell her, to respect herself, respect others. If there's ever a time where she feels like down, or if someone's, even if I just notice that like she's coming back from dance class and she like looks down, I'll say, is everything all right? She's like, I don't want to talk about it right now, but eventually she will. Like by the end of the night, she'll come and tell me if someone was messing, whatever.
Right.
And we discuss on ways to deal with that situation.
Mhm.
And then again, if it's between other homeschool families, well, we know the parents, so we're able to talk directly to the parents if there's something that has happened,
Right.
or whatnot.
Right.
But I think that that's been helpful for us, is that my children feel very comfortable coming to me and talking to me about pretty much anything right now. They're not in
Yeah.
their teenage years yet, but
Right. Yeah, I do this thing with my daughter Brianna. I like when I feel that she's maybe not distant, but maybe she's been on her tablet playing a game for a few hours, and I've been working, and I've been and we kind of like haven't really bonded. I grab her and I say, I'm your father. I love you, right? And then she just laughs and she's like, yes, yes, daddy. And I want to just always make sure that she understands that I'm always there, you know, that I'm always going to be there, and that I'm always going to listen to her. And you know, I do also want her to understand, and I think also I was going to mention this when Lorena, you mentioned the point um about being with, you know, being nice to your kid, or bonding, right? The bonding element. I think that actually creates confidence in the kid, you know, and I think that
Yeah.
bond and that knowing that they're loved creates
Yes.
such a high self-esteem and such high awareness of themselves that the bullying aspect doesn't affect them, because they know what looks ugly. You know what I mean? They know that is not what I want to be part of. I don't like the way that person is talking, because that's not the way I've ever been spoken to before, you know? So I kind of like it, because I think what happens in school with the whole anti-bullying thing is that the kids get desensitized to it, and it just becomes the norm. It's like,
Hmm.
well, that's the way that guy is. He treats everybody like that. And it's unacceptable, you know? So I like that. I like that we're, you know, able to be there for our kids, and give them that confidence that they can go out and just confront the world and not really feel that somebody's going to bully them, because they don't care, you know. And I think that that's really important. Like, Karina, your kids are amazing. You know, whenever I go there, they're like, you know, hi, Mr. John, you know, how are you? And it's like, and you know, playing guitar and stuff and teaching you guitar. It's such a pleasure that they're just like so well, they're so well mannered, but they communicate and they're playful. You know, it's just very, very a blessing to see that, you know. um
Oh,
yeah, no, you're welcome. So it
no,
looks like
it's not
Almi, go ahead,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
that. No, I say it's nice. It's nice if somebody else sees that, you know. But
Yeah,
but
I definitely see that.
yeah, I feel like it's so important because we do spend a lot of time with our kids, you know, that we get to teach not just with our words but with our actions, you know. They get
Absolutely.
that. And with so many sad stories that you hear around, you know, the world with
Yeah.
kids, you know, their own decisions. um I am very, very grateful for having that chance to spend the time with my kids, to be able to see when, even if they don't say something, you know, to be able to see that they're acting different, that,
Right.
you know, something is just not right.
Yeah,
So I feel like when we are so busy, you know, trying to juggle many other things, it's hard. I mean, it's easy to miss sometimes some things like
It
that,
is.
you
mhm,
know.
Yeah.
mhm.
So
Yeah,
so that's really good.
that's great. Well, it looks like Almi maybe had maybe her
Probably her
phone.
phone.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, we'll do this again for sure, because this was fun, and I think we can actually maybe even go deeper into different curriculums, and maybe even show a curriculum one day if we want to do
Yeah,
this again in the future.
yeah,
I
let's
would love
do
to do that. What was that?
I say, yeah, let's do homeschooling series, you know.
Yeah,
It
there
won't be
you go. Homeschooling
schooling,
series.
but
Yeah,
not
why not? Absolutely,
Yeah.
definitely. So anyway, I want to thank you for being here. You know, this has been a joy. I love, you know, I just love the subject, and I love the fact that there's so many people out there that are passionate about it. I also love the fact that we're all Latinos, and
yeah.
because that is to me that's actually a big deal. You know,
Yeah.
for that. And you know, I also want to thank you for, you know, not just sharing your stories, but also for being open to like having people reach out to you, because that's also a very
Absolutely.
commendable thing, to like be able to be there for somebody who's confused about it and wants a little guidance. So that's really important. So I'm gonna put, I won't put all, I'll put the classical conversations, and I'll put maybe Karina's information down there if anybody's interested to reach out, and you guys will, you know, have a conversation and see where it goes. You know, so
Oh,
any final words?
thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. So don't go
the
away.
class.
Just hang on there. We're just gonna leave YouTube, and then I'll be right there. So just stay right there for a sec. All right, everyone. Thank you very much. This is John Henry Soto. This is JHS Interviews. Everything was gonna be down in the description, and I will see you all tomorrow night at 9:30. Take care. Peace.